Hey YouTube, Levi here with Eastridge Outdoors. It has been forever since I've been able to get out to do a video. Sorry about that for my subscribers and those of you who were waiting. I had some sickness take me out for a while, and then as soon as I got over it, I sprained my ankle. But I'm back on my feet now, and you know what this is? You clicked. It's the Beavercraft BSH1. It's 10.63 inches total. As you can see, it is polished. Now it does have, let me get a close up here, some tarnishing. Come on, focus for me. Well, it's not really the focus issue, it's the glare. This thing is so shiny, I mean, you can see the trees very clearly. It's obviously a mirror polish, but anyway, take my word for it. There's a tiny bit of tarnishing on this blade, discoloration, but it did not come like that. It came perfect. That came from my testing. I used it, I was out testing it, so I used it for a day, for a camping trip, for one day, and didn't wash it. Put it back in the sheath and left it for 3 weeks, probably, maybe 4 weeks. And I was wondering how bad it would, rust. I've dealt a lot with high carbon blades, but it held up very well. Very, very well. I'm extremely surprised, extremely impressed. And so I did want to mention that. I thought this would show up, the little bit of tarnishing that I saw, but it is really not showing. Oh, there's a spot. Can you see it? Oh, come on, focus, you bet. Right there. Just before the grind on the edge of the tip. That's really the only thing that's standing out. There's one spot under here, under the beaver, under their logo. Let's see if I can get that to show. Yeah, there it is. Now you can see it. That tiny spot too. Those are the only things that that I see at all on here, and that's nothing. I know that would come off with some Alt 4, but I won't even waste my time with it, really. But back to what I was saying. I'm sorry. It's been a long time since I've done a video. I've got a lot to say now. But back to the specs. The blade itself, 4.92 inches, just under 5. The width, going this direction, 1.18 inch, and it's got 2.5 millimeter thickness. To kind of give you an idea, for those of you who have an SRK, that's 5. So half that. Or a, well, no, we'll just stick with the SRK reference. But like I said, it is 1066 high carbon steel. That's a Ukrainian steel, and BPS Knives also uses that. It's very popular, or well, it's getting popular, and people are loving it. BPS does a great job, and so far Beavercraft is doing a great job with it. The hardness on this thing, 57 to 59. It is a full tang, and it's obvious, it's an exposed full tang, no pommel to speak of. It has a 90-degree spine that they intentionally do, because this is a bushcraft series. BSH stands for bushcraft, and they want you to be able to use a ferro rod. People complain about no 90-degree spines, so they did it. Man, this focus, I'm gonna figure this out. Anyway, the walnut, these scales are walnut, and they are removable, as you can see. That's a Torx bit. I can't remember. I think it's 10. I can't remember for sure. No. It's an 8. I don't know. 8 or 10. But it does come off. I have had it off. The polish comes down to here. I don't know why. And then the rest of it wasn't polished. But honestly, I'm surprised they polished any of that under there. I wouldn't have, had it been my company. Why waste your time with it? But I do like the scales. Similar to BPS knives, they do come a little rough, but at the price point, they're an amazing deal. And that's, that is why they do come a little unfinished. Like I put, as you can see, mine's got a little sheen to it. I put a butcher block oil finish on it. And so I do like the fact that they're removable. I have several knives with non-removable, non-removable, unremovable scales that cannot be removed. And I always wonder how rusty they are underneath there. And not to mention, sometimes scales break, crack, get loose, whatever. You want to be able to maintain your knife. And so removable scales, I think, are important when it comes to that. Now the sheath is leather with a dangler. It has an insert in between to keep you from, cutting through your stitching. As you can see, it's got a weird shape at the top. That's me. I did this. Sheath this thing up for you. The sheath originally came to about right here. I like a little more to hold on to. A lot of times I'm wearing gloves. And if I'm not quite looking, well, I never look at myself draw my knife. It's on my hip. I know where it's at. So I draw it. And a lot of times when I'm wearing gloves, I can't feel exactly what I have a hold of. I keep tugging on the sheath. So I cut it lower. And I went with this curve. I don't know. Felt fancy. I did color it. That's actually permanent marker. That is not, I was trying to go for that color, trying to match it up a little bit. But I do like this change. I felt like the sheath was too high on this and the two. But it is very durable, very thick. Not as thick as, say, Condor or BPS. Both of them use a thicker leather. But all of them do a great leather sheath. This is a fantastic leather sheath. I do like the dangler. I'm a big dangler fan. And I like for my knives to ride very low because I like easy access. I don't want my shirt hung up, whatever. Those of you who are dangler fans, you know exactly what I mean. The dangler on this one, compared to the two, is fixed. The two was removable. So far, it's been the only one that has been. One and the two both have this style sheath with the dangler, but the two's dangler is removable. And I really like that. Beavercraft, if you're listening, I don't know why you did it with only that one sheath, because a removable dangler is a sweet little option. Granted, I use it, but not everybody does. And if you don't want to use your dangler, it does tuck down pretty well and it sits up against your side. It's just an annoyance sometimes. It's something to get hung. So I do like the fact that the two had a removable one. I wish this one did, but it is what it is. Either way, I love that they added the dangler to begin with. And that's all I have for the specs. The only negatives I have about this knife at all are mostly in the sheath. And it is not a bad sheath. I'm picking on the knife. I got to find something bad about them. And so, to pick on this one, nitpicking, so to speak, this sheath. Too high and should have a removable dangler. I know, that's petty. All right, but that's all I have for the specs. Now we're going to move on to the fun part, or for me, what's the fun part? I'm going to do a little bit of chopping. I didn't do any chopping, per se, with this knife. No more than you would do with the average knife. I always do a little bit of chopping with some, knots that are hanging out, whatever. But I want to do some chopping with this thing. We're going to baton with it, do some feather sticks, see what it can do with a ferro rod, see what it does on fat wood, and then we'll build the fire, and I'll give you my overall opinion, which I kind of already have. You obviously know, for those that don't want to stay this whole time, I like this knife. But let me adjust the camera, and we'll get to it. Okay, so I don't expect this to be a very good chopper. This is not what I would do Normally with this knife, this is not a chopper, what I would consider a chopper. It's gonna need something bigger and heavier. Speaking of, no. But we're gonna try it anyway. Better than I expected. Much better, actually. Now, I have not tied a lanyard on here because I did not plan on ever using this as a chopper. Now that I'm doing it for the video, I kind of wish I would have. Because it's very hard to hold on to. It does have a flare, it makes it easier. Without that, I'd be throwing this thing. And I'm not trying to do a throwing knife review. But you can see, it did a fairly good job. No damage. I don't know if it's focusing, who knows. But no damage, no nicks, nothing. Now, I didn't mention, but these things come razor sharp out of the box. I have sharpened it a couple times. Now, I won't say sharpened it. I have touched it up a couple times. Just because. But it's held a great edge. I forgot to grab my beta stick. Alright, let's do a little batoning here. Now this is nothing hard. It's pine, softwood. And this is a fairly large piece for this knife. Normally I wouldn't do, well, that's a lie. I like to push my knives. So I do give them a little more than they can handle sometimes. Let's push this down a little bit. This is not the ideal piece, but I did this for, because this is a review. Normally if I'm batoning, I would look out for stuff like this. All that is knots. So it's going to make it extremely difficult. But I want to do it for this video because A, show batoning, B, show blade edge retention and toughness. So we'll see. I've never done it with all these knots with this knife, so we'll find out together. I do know knives that as much as I'm putting behind this swing onto, what was it, maybe a ½ inch of tip. I mean, it's more than that now, but D2 would snap. That's why I stay away from D2 knives. Better advertised for outdoor use. Love it in pocket knives, but I can't stand it in my fixed blades. But it's because of the hardness, D2 is hard. It's at like 61, 62, 63. Average 61. Which makes it, excuse me, brittle to do woodworking with. Or beat the crap out of. And you definitely don't want to do anything with the tip. But as you can see, this thing goes right through this, even with the knots. Nothing, no damage. at all. Very impressed with that. And with my experience on 1066, I have done chopping with it, I have batoned with it, and I have dealt with mini chips, not big ones, tiny chips, not microscopic either, stuff you have to sharpen out or you'll get a snag. But this held up extremely well. So I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed. Not to call any names, but BPS, I've had more chipping in their 1066 than I have with this Beavercraft stuff. It appears a lot of it seems like it's coming out of the same factory. By the looks of the knives, the steels, the hardware, it's very similar, but I don't know if it is or not. Can't say one way or another. And it could be simply because that's what they get in the Ukraine. I don't know what kind of supplies they get. If you notice, I'm doing this bark with the back of my knife. I know it looks awkward, but bark contains a lot of dirt. Dirt will dull the crap out of your knife. So I try to remove what I can with the back so that I don't dull my knife up unnecessarily. I'm just going to peel that off. For those of you who are curious, with this Scandi grind, I hope I mentioned that was a Scandi grind. I think I might have skipped that while I was running my mouth. But it is a Scandi grind, 0 degree Scandi, or what they call a 0 degree. It really means 15 degrees. But a 0 degree Scandi grind. And it does exactly what you would expect out of a Scandi grind. Takes huge chunks of wood. When you're cut. Great for wood processing, woodworking. Rephrase that. Great for woodworking. Not necessarily wood processing. Let's do some feathers. Change sides. It does great on feather sticks. I just came from a flat grind knife I've been testing, so it'll be a second before I can get used to the Scandi grind. They carve completely different, so you have to really pay attention. Very light touch with a Scandi grind. And I don't know if this is the wood, I'm sure it probably is, or the grind, but these aren't curling. It's great feathers, doing great on the feathers, but I'm not seeing any curls. Well, there was a tiny one, but you know, a lot of those convex and flat grinds that I've been using, testing lately, this is the only Scandi grind I've been testing, they curl them up like a ribbon, you know. But it's not as easy to get such good feathers. So this thing does great feather sticks. For those of you who follow me, you know I suck at feather sticks. I've drastically improved, guys. I've been trying to do better. I've been using it. I've come across some weather lately that I needed, well, raining, you know. When you're starting a fire in the rain, feather sticks are your best friend. Because, well, it's a bitch. Start a fire in the rain. You want a good feather stick. It just saves you some trouble, I've discovered. And fat wood. I'm a firm believer in fat wood because while it's raining, I can throw a spark on some fat wood, light it up, and have myself a little bit of time to get everything else going. Boy, I have put some residue. I don't know what that is. I'm assuming it's from my beater stick. Put like a coating over the top of the spine. I don't think it's going to affect it though. We're going to throw some sparks at you, and then I'll move the camera again and show you the fat wood, and we'll build that fire. Where's my sparks? You can see this ferro rod is much smaller than the one I normally use. It actually is the one I normally use. I just decided that I would cut it in half and make 2 ferro rods because I like to play. I made this handle for it. I know this has nothing to do with the review, but I want to show it off. Out of fat wood. You see that hole? But this is untreated, you know, just straight fat wood. Drilled a hole. JB welded this half of the ferro rod into it. You can see this hole. That was my first attempt. And I wasn't paying attention. And you see how thin that is. I knew that would break. So I flipped it over, drilled this side, and I intended on, you know, shaving this down to make the shape my handle. I decided to leave it to use, you know, until I get it shaved down. I'm gonna use this as my fat wood. That way I don't have to carry anymore. I mean, I don't have to carry anymore. I still do, but I keep this in my pocket now instead of in my fire kit because I've discovered I always have a knife on me, and there's been a few times I didn't have a ferro rod. I do keep a lighter, but that's no fun. So I decided to cut this in half, keep it in my pocket. The other half went with one of my knives. You'll see that later in the video. And then do this so I don't have to carry fat wood. Just me playing around. I do crap like that all the time. Okay. Throw you some sparks and then we'll adjust. As you can see, this thing can provide the 4th of July. Woo! Alright, I'm going to adjust the camera before I catch myself on fire. Okay. So here's my little ferro rod / fat stick stash. I mean fat wood. I like to do the feathers first. Doesn't really matter the order. But I do the feathers so it kind of exposes that raw fat wood. Really makes no difference. But I like to make some feathers first and then do the scrapings or shavings. You can see this thing has a great spine. Shavings are no problem. Here's a lazy man's tip for you guys out there. When you're building your fire, if you do things like I do, ferro rod, whatnot, really even with a lighter, it's pretty handy. This right here. When you're processing your wood, go ahead and process you a flat, stable, sturdy piece. That way, for those of us that are getting old and have some back issues, or just do not feel like hunching over for all that time. I'm hunching over right now because I'm on video. If I was doing this not on video, I'd be sitting my butt in a chair doing the same thing. But I'd be in my chair, not have to bend over at all, and I have me a stable piece. Granted, I have a stump here, but not, that's rare, that's just here. Everywhere else I go, it's just whatever's available, usually nothing, the ground. And so I will get this, put it on a rock or something, or whatever I can get higher, and then you can take this Ooh, this thing peels some ferro right here. With fat wood, I can move this around. It's not going out. So then I can just take it down to my fire. Instead of having to do it in the fire pit, hunch over, get ashes, whatever, bend over forever. That's what I do. Lazy man tip. My little feather stick I made. Throw that in there just for giggles. And boom, fire. This thing does a great job with that. So, what do I think the Beavercraft BSH1? I have to say, of the 1, 2, and 3, this one is my favorite. I love the size. I'm a guy that likes a bigger knife, an all-around, all-purpose wood processing / camp / food knife. Now, I'd wipe this off if I was going to use it for food, but I like an all-arounder. And this is perfect for that. The BSH2, I believe, was a little small. The BSH3 is about the right size. You know, I mean, it's a little small for me, but it was big enough. But this is almost perfection. I like it just a little bigger, a little thicker. But this is a great knife. And granted, these are my tastes. Not everybody wants a heavy 10, 12, 14 ounce knife to carry around on those backpacking trips, camping trips, whatever. I like them because I can do everything with those. Not all of them. You gotta know what you want. But I can do everything with those, and I never am wanting, wishing, or lacking. The smaller knives can do some great things. Sometimes I wish it were bigger, but the big knives I never wish were smaller. So this is my favorite so far. Please, subscribe to my channel if you enjoy what you see. Check out my other videos, and that's pretty much all I have for you. I appreciate it. I'm out.